Harriet Tubman was born in Maryland's Dorchester County in 1820. She was born as Araminta Ross and was born into slavery. Both of Araminta's parents were enslaved. She was the ninth child born. After 12 years, she began working as a field worker and endured an experience that marked her life forever. Araminta was physically abused constantly and suffered permanent scarring from it all her life. One day, when sent on an errand for groceries, Araminta blocked the door away from another field worker and his overseer. Because of her actions, the overseer threw a 2-pound brick that hit her head. Consequences from this altercation resulted in Araminta never fully recovering, experiencing serious headaches, seizures, narcoleptic episodes, and intense dream states, which she called religious experiences. In the year 1844, Araminta married John Tubman and took his last name. John Tubman was a free man, and all the children they had were slaved, taking the status of their mother. Araminta changed her name to Harriet around the year she got married in honor of her mother. In 1849, after Harriet's owner died, she decided to escape the plantation due to fear of her family getting served. She left with both her brothers, Harry and Ben. A notice in the Cambridge Democrat offered a $300 reward for Harriet, Harry, and Ben. Due to second thoughts, Harry and Ben decided to return to the plantation, but Harriet went along with her journey after watching her brothers arrive safely home. Harriet set out to Pennsylvania using the 90-mile travel through the Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad was a network of secret routes and safe houses used by abolitionists to successfully free their slaves. When I found I had crossed that line, I looked at my hands to see if I was the same person. There was such a glory over everything. The sun came like gold through the trees and over the fields, and I felt like I was in heaven. In December of 1850, Harriet received news that her 2 daughters and niece, Keisha, were to be sold. Luckily, Keisha's free black husband auctioned and bought his wife. Afterwards, Harriet made several trips back south and received the name Moses for her leadership throughout these journeys. Escaping slavery became most difficult in 1850 when the fugitive slave law was enforced. This law stated that any former slaves can be captured in the North and brought back to the South. This law caused the abduction of former slaves as well as free blacks. This shaped the start of a new route Harriet would begin to take that led her slaves into Canada, where this law wouldn't be enforced. In December 1851, Harriet led 11 fugitives north, and there is proof that actually states she brought them to the home of former slave Frederick Douglass. She devised techniques that helped make her foray successful, including using the master's horse and leaving on a Saturday night since runaway notices couldn't be placed in newspapers until Monday morning. Turning about and heading south if she encountered possible slave hunters, and carrying a drug to use on a baby if its crying might put the fugitives in danger. Tubman even carried a gun which she used to threaten the fugitives if they became too tired or decided to turn back, telling them, "You'll be free or die." In 1858, Tubman was introduced to abolitionist John Brown, who advocated the use of violence to disrupt slavery. They both shared the same goals, and Tubman tolerated his strategies. When recruiting support for an attack Brown wanted to hold in Harper's Ferry, he turned to Tubman for support. After Brown's subsequent execution, Tubman viewed him as someone who preferred death over renounce a religion. Tubman stayed active in the Civil War, working as a cook and nurse. She became a spy for the Union and was the first woman to lead an armed expedition in the war. She guided the Combahee River Raid, which freed 600 slaves to South Carolina. When Harriet Tubman was elderly, she was suffering the consequences of her head injury she had earlier in her life. This resulted in her getting brain surgery and sent to rest in the home later named in her honor. She died from pneumonia in 1913. Harriet Tubman was an African American abolitionist, humanitarian, and a Union spy during the Civil War. I was the conductor of the Underground Railroad for 8 years, and I can say what most conductors can't say. I never ran my train off the track, and I never lost a passenger.